You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life.
The wise man should consider that health is the greatest of human blessings. Let food be your medicine. Hippocrates. How's it going, Travis?
Good. We got back from South Dakota yesterday. We spent the first 2 nights of our vacation with friends in Laramie. And we went on an 11-mile hike in the mountains outside of Laramie. And I was pretty happy with my workout plan after that hike. Mainly because the couple we stayed with are endurance athletes. The guy had actually run a 100-mile race through the Black Hills the week before. Yeah, he was sore for 3 days. I was like, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't walk for a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's pretty, she's intense. He's crazy. So I was pretty excited when they were both tired after the hike as well.
Yeah, no kidding.
Then I was humbled a little bit on Saturday night. We went to a concert and I'm still a little sore.
What concert was this again? Was this Shinedown? Yeah, that's awesome.
It was fun. Also, I learned that, so I didn't want to get in the front section because I was afraid to, like, I've been to a Shinedown concert before, a long time ago, and other rock concerts and stuff. And I was like, they always start a mosh pit, and the last thing I want to do is be involved in that. Yeah, it turns out that Shinedown fans are now as old as me, and none of them want to be involved in that either.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so the mean age was probably in her 30s, and there was no mosh pit ever. It was
that's hysterical.
Yeah, it was more standing around. It was funny.
That is
anyway.
Funny.
How's it going, Lauren?
It's going good. We just got back from our annual Maxwell family vacation. We were in southern Arizona for most of the trip and got to hike in the Chiricahuas, which was actually pretty awesome. I haven't done that since I was a kid, so it was really kind of cool to be able to see it as an adult. It was a lot more interesting than I remember it being as a kid. And just like beautiful. It's a beautiful area. We came up to Parks for the last few days of the trip, which was nice because it was a little cooler at least. And when you don't have AC, that is a really nice thing to have the air be cooler around you. The cabin we stayed at in Parks had a huge field that like overlooks, or like a plain that overlooks, or that it overlooks like from where it is, and we got to see some deer and prairie dogs from the deck of our cabin, and then we heard like elk and coyote at night and in the morning, which was really yeah, it was really cool.
What sounds did you hear from elk?
I'm not gonna do that on this podcast. You can YouTube it.
They're not. Was it the loud, high-pitched squeal?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They're not very vocal this time of year generally, so that's interesting.
They were vocal for some reason, like
it's early
in the morning and late at night.
Yeah, it's cool to hear. The coyotes are pretty awesome to hear.
Oh, too. The coyotes were so cool because they would be in a chorus all around the cabin, and then you're like,
yeah, it's a little spooky the first time you hear it, and then you realize that it's coyotes and not wolves, and you're like, wait a second, my dog's way bigger than those.
Yeah, pretty cool. What are we going to talk about today, Travis?
Lauren, this is a topic that to me seems to have gotten wrapped in with a number of other topics like climate change, ethics, ideological, and environmental concerns. We're going to talk about, is meat really bad for our health?
Great topic. So there are some potential risks between meat and cancer. One of the articles that we read outlined like 3 different things. So there's a potential risk in cooking meats. High temperatures used to cook meats, especially red meat, have been linked to the formation of cancer-causing compounds. As meat cooks at scorching temperatures, their fats seep out and accumulate on the hot cooking surface, and in the process, toxic compounds called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Yeah, that was the first time pronouncing it. I'm pretty proud of myself.
It's good.
So these are also known as PAHs, which I'm going to be saying for the rest of the time because I don't want to say that again. So PAHs could be harmful to human health since they are carcinogenic or cancer causing. However, reducing smoke and quickly removing drippings may reduce PAH formation by up to 89%. So that seems like a good way to reduce your cancer risk.
So you can just grill instead of pan fry.
Yeah, grilling, frying, and roasting meat at high temperatures, though, can create heterocyclic aromatic amines,
Oh.
which are also known as HAAs or HAAs. I don't know if that's true, but I'm going to call it, no, I'm not. I'm going to call it HAAs, just in case that's wrong, which have been linked to cancer in long-term animal studies. So again, animal studies, not human studies, but HAA levels appear to increase when food is cooked for a long period of time. Storing or ripening meat in the fridge for many days may raise HAA levels, as reported in an older study. But according to the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or the IARC, an authority of the World Health Organization, there isn't really enough evidence to determine whether a meat's cooking method affects your cancer risk. Let this be kind of a foreshadowing for the rest of the episode, where we have studies that say one thing and studies that say other things. So
yeah, it's amazing how many studies are out there on diet and the claims in society and how they're just not backed up at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there is also potential risk for nitrates and nitrites. Meat cooked at high temperatures has been linked to cancer-causing compounds, yet cooking methods' effect on cancer risks are unclear. When nitrates are ingested, they are converted into nitrites, which may be associated with increased cancer risk. There's also maybe a potential risk with consumption of meat and cancer. Processed meats are linked to cancer with the strongest evidence linking it to colorectal cancer. Red meat is probably carcinogenic.
Okay. All right. So meat and heart disease. Several studies have linked the consumption of processed or unprocessed meat to heart disease. Some controlled studies have shown that meat may have a neutral or beneficial effect. Right. Try and make sense out of that, everybody. Red and processed meat consumption and risk of incident coronary heart disease, stroke, and diabetes mellitus. 2010 systematic review and meta-analysis found that consumption of processed meats, but not red meats, this is actually fairly common in the studies. Processed meats bad, red meats not. Processed meats, but not red meats, is associated with higher incidence of coronary heart disease and diabetes mellitus. And I would like to make a note even on that. With all of the hoopla, for lack of a better word, that this stuff gets, people who are eating processed meats are probably also more likely to be eating Oreo cookies and M&Ms on a regular basis, and probably not exercising. So it's still really hard to parse out what is real and what is just other lifestyle factors from these studies. So another one, a 2021 meta-analysis assessed the associations of unprocessed meat, processed meat, and poultry intake and risk of ischemic heart disease. They had over 1.4 million adults. They showed that a 50 gram per day or higher consumption of unprocessed red meat and processed meat was associated with 9% and 18% higher ischemic heart disease risks. Respectively, there was no evidence for an association of ischemic heart disease with poultry consumption. So this one found that chicken is very safe. The positive association of unprocessed red meat and processed meat intake and heart disease risk might be explained by one or more of several different mechanisms. A prominent hypothesized mechanism is saturated fat intake, which has been shown to increase LDLs, a causal risk factor for heart disease. Unprocessed red and processed meat contain higher amounts of saturated fat per gram than poultry, which could explain the absence of an association with poultry intake. Another mechanism that might be specific to red meat intake is trimethylamine N-oxide.
Good job.
Thanks. Which might contribute to an increased risk of heart disease by promoting atherosclerosis. All processed meat has high sodium content, which likely increases the risk of high blood pressure, a causal risk factor for heart disease. That makes sense. Sodium drives my blood pressure up immediately. There's also some evidence that suggests that red meat and processed meat consumption is positively associated with higher levels of inflammatory biomarkers due to their high heme content. I don't know what heme is, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure either. We should probably look that up.
Probably should have looked that up. But it doesn't matter because all this stuff contradicts itself. So, Lauren, go on.
Yeah. So some observational studies show a relationship between red meat and processed meats and increased diabetes risk. However, this may also depend on other dietary factors, similar to what Travis already said. Like, observational studies aren't necessarily the best, and it's really hard to parse out what part of your diet is really contributing to a diabetes risk in those studies. Anyway, meat and weight gain. Again, some observational studies have linked red and processed meat intake to higher weights, but more robust research is needed, and especially more higher level evidence is needed.
Maybe that's just because weightlifters eat meat generally, so we're heavier. I'm hypothesizing.
Hypothesis.
So we talk a lot about mental health as well as physical health on this podcast. They're at least equally important. I think mental health is probably even more important. It's one of the big benefits you get from helping your physical health as your mental health improves. So 2021 meta-analysis on meat consumption and depression and anxiety that included 171,802 participants aged from 11 to 105 years old.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's a big range. They found a significant association between meat consumption and abstention and depression and anxiety. Specifically, individuals who consumed meat had lower average depression and anxiety levels than meat abstainers. I have never heard this argument made before I did the research for this podcast.
Yeah, I had not either. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Vegans experienced greater levels of depression than meat consumers. And the cumulative analyses suggest that the more rigorous the study, the stronger the relation between meat abstention and mental illness. And remember, this is a meta-analysis, so it's taking lots of studies to get these 171,000 participants. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. Gosh, I would have never thought that was related.
Crazy. And Lauren's about to go over meat intake and life expectancy.
Travis's favorite topic.
It is my favorite topic, especially for this, because when people tell me that, eating vegetarian or vegan is going to increase the life expectancy, which is a common thing that they claim, I'm just like, let's look at the world, because it's very easy to prove you wrong.
Yeah, so there was an ecological study that examined the relationship between meat intake and life expectancy at birth, at 5 years old, and child mortality at a population level. Results from the study indicated that countries with greater meat intake have greater life expectancy and lower child mortality. The complete nutritional profile of meat and human adaptation to meat eating have enabled humans to gain many physical benefits, including greater life expectancy. So,
yeah, that's pretty solid evidence. So wild game meat. Generally speaking, wild game meat there's not many studies on this, unfortunately. I feel like there should be. But generally speaking, this study was performed in the Central and Mediterranean European countries. They compared livestock meat to wild game meat, and they found lower fat content and therefore a lower energy content in the wild game meat, higher or similar protein content, positive fatty acids profile, and higher minerals content. So basically they found that wild game meat was much, much more beneficial, or as far as we know, with the content in the meat compared to livestock meat.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I did not know that before looking at this research.
I would have bet money on it.
I mean, sure, but I definitely didn't know it.
Right.
So we maybe have found that there's no health benefit to reducing consumption of meat. According to a new review of the evidence, a team of Spanish and Polish researchers have found that there is no health benefit to reducing the consumption of red meat in one's diet. The researchers separately reviewed 12 randomized trials that have been done on red meat and processed meat and health risks, and found that there was little to no benefit conferred to people who cut down on eating those foods.
Yep. All right, so a complete protein is something you might hear if you start studying diet. I don't recommend you start studying diet because it's wildly difficult to study. So a food is considered a complete protein when it contains all 9 essential amino acids that our body cannot produce on its own. There are 20 different amino acids that bond together in a chain to form a protein. 11 of those amino acids are produced by our bodies. The other 9, the so-called essential amino acids, we need to get through our food. Many foods contain some, but not all of the essential amino acids, and in various amounts. Incomplete sources of protein containing some of the amino acids would include legumes such as beans, peas, lentils. Not bees. Don't eat bees. Nuts, seeds, whole grains, and vegetables. Complete proteins contain all 9 essential amino acids, as I said earlier, in consistent amounts. Here are the complete protein examples that we know of: fish, poultry, eggs, beef, pork, dairy, and whole sources of soy, such as tofu, edamame, tempeh, and miso. I don't eat that stuff. It's all tasteless to me. Other than edamame is actually pretty good.
Edamame is like my favorite, but yeah, I occasionally eat tofu because Nolan likes to eat tofu, but I have to season the crap out of it to make
it's pretty tasteless.
Palatable, yeah.
The important part about that little section there, though, is that literally if it's not coming from an animal, the only way you can get in one food source, you have to combine food sources, and you can do that, and there's whole books on how to do that. But it's much easier to eat one food source and get all the essential amino acids, which you get in all forms of dairy and meat, basically. Or you can eat soy. So if you were following a vegetarian or vegan diet, including a wide variety of plant foods such as legumes, lentils, nuts, seeds, and whole grains on a daily basis, it will allow you to get the complete proteins you need, but you have to plan a little bit, and you have to and you have to follow a strict regimen each day.
Yeah, you have to pay more attention, I guess, be more mindful of the amino acids you're getting so that you're getting all of them.
Yeah, and at that point, to me, it becomes not worth it because I don't want to dedicate that time to my diet.
Yeah. Diet is already hard enough.
Exactly.
So benefits of eating protein-rich foods. Reduced appetite and increased metabolism. Numerous studies have shown that high-protein diets increase metabolic rate, reduce hunger, and promote fullness. Another benefit would be retention of muscle mass. Higher protein intakes are linked to increased muscle mass. You also have stronger bones with eating protein-rich foods. Protein is an essential nutrient for bone health, food sources appear to have a protective influence and ultimately reduce fracture risk. You also have better iron absorption. Meat contains heme iron, which your body absorbs better than non-heme iron from plants. However, certain foods can support the absorption of non-heme iron from plant sources.
We figured out what heme is.
Haha,
It's a type of iron.
Yes.
All right. So, Lauren, this is my favorite type of conversation. So somebody contacted me on my cell phone. This is a personal contact. This wasn't somebody in a clinic or anything that I was treating. Somebody contacted me asking me for diet advice. And right away I professed, hey, I'm not a diet expert. I have no intention of being a diet expert. But their goal was to build muscle, build strength. I was like, you got to get enough protein. That much is very, very clear in the evidence. And he brought up this video. He was like, well, meat's not good. Because I was like, dude, eat some steak. And he brought up this video. It's very popular on Amazon Prime. It's called Game Changers. It's a movie. They got big stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff to support this movie. So the basic premise of the movie is that human performance will increase with a plant-based diet. So he sent me the video. I looked at their website. I see it. This is the premise. And I'm just immediately like, well, that's a bunch of crap. Here's why it's a bunch of crap. The problem with this claim that human performance will increase with a plant-based diet is that they're talking about physical performance. There is not one of the best athletes in the world at this point that eats a plant-based diet. Michael Phelps, by far the best swimmer in the world ever, eats meat. Michael Jordan, that one's arguable, but most people agree that he's the best basketball player ever, eats meat. Serena Williams, pretty much not arguable. She is the best women's tennis player ever. She's dominated for, I think, most of our life.
Yeah.
It's been at least 20 years that she's been insane. She eats meat. Tom Brady, again, pretty much widely accepted that he's the best quarterback, at least, to ever play football, eats meat. So
do with that what you will.
Right, exactly.
So in conclusion, diet research is really tough to do. It is wrought with bias, and that's why we give a little advice on this podcast about it. Our recommendation is to eat less if you want to lose weight. But most importantly, if you want to try a new diet, log how you feel. If you start to feel that you have less energy, it is not a good diet for you, no matter what some expert says.
Yes, so a challenge this week would be, if you're not feeling really, really great, and you feel like something needs to change, but you can't figure it out, you don't have the energy to do the things you want, whatever it is that you're feeling is not up to par, track how you feel with the different foods that you eat throughout the week, so that you can come up with the best diet for you.
Mm-hmm. It's a great challenge.
Great job today, Lauren. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
You too. I was just going to say, I feel like I do that every once in a while, even if I'm feeling fine. I just it's good to know it's good to pay attention to how food makes you feel. Anyway.
Agreed.
Great job today, Travis.
Great job, Lauren. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.